About to say, you go live, they're not going to give me a countdown or nothing. They just, boom, you're live, you're on. It's all right. We can catch up with it. And we are live on Instagram and all those other wonderful things. Shout out to Jay-Z and the people at Tidal for not suing me for having that music on in the background. All right. Now let's go live on TikTok. See, there we go. 3, 2. Thank you, TikTok, for giving me a countdown at least. All right. You can now receive guest requests. All right. What's up? Is it Bazad? Delisha, welcome back. Kimberly, welcome back. What's going on, Jackie? What's going on, Christina? And Christine, what's going on, Christine? What's going on, Terry? Is that Terry down there? What's going on, Richard? We just getting started. It's just going to be a small group of us, or whoever finds us on Clubhouse. I didn't send the invite out for Clubhouse. I sent it out for TikTok. So today we're going to talk about multifamily commercial. Seems everybody loves the idea of investing in multifamily, and many people have gotten enrolled in programs teaching them how to invest in multifamily, and it's not working out. So we're going to see, we're going to examine why it's not working out, why the multifamily training that they got is not working out. But we are going to go over some basics as soon as I finish getting started. Is it 9 o'clock yet at my time? 9 o'clock, right on the dot. So we're going to go over some basics, but my goal for everybody is for them to ultimately scale up to apartment buildings and not be intimidated by them. My name is Otis James. I'm a full-time real estate investor out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm also the founder of the 4 Data Points Academy, which I'm sure you guys have seen that logo pop up here and there. I say full-time investor because, you know, the old saying, those who can't do, teach. But I'm teaching and I'm still doing. I think that's why I'm holding on to being a real estate investor. So I'm never that guy that has to, teach because he can't do it anymore. All right. I am a long-term hold investor. I invest all over the country. I teach people how to do the same. I teach people how to be 100% self-sufficient. I teach people how to mitigate risk. I teach people how to protect their financial future. And those people that I teach, they stay on with me in perpetuity, forever. They stay on with me. All right. So if you're on my real estate, our real estate family now, you will be in my real estate family 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And they're going to be wondering how I didn't go bankrupt by allowing people to do that. That's all right. Because God will provide, folks. All right, it's enough stalling. Tavares, what's going on, man? I know you en route.
What's up, my man? What's happening with it? I'm Tavares from the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a health and transformation educator, founder of the Body Synthesis, where we mitigate health risks through preventative medicine coaching. I also spent 10.5 years in the multifamily industry, started off as a concierge, made my way up to a business manager. Pandemic hit, and I had to make a shift, so I did that. One of my greatest assets in the property management industry was vendor management, vendor relations, man. Take care of your vendors because your vendors will definitely take care of you. I've leased from the Bay Area to LA, everything from residential up to high-rise luxury products. And known Otis and James well over 38 years, so I'm here to support my guy, my brother from another, and help him to reach that pinnacle that he always talks about, right? The promised land. So everybody here, welcome. Grateful to be amongst all of you beautiful people.
Yes.
And set your stage. Get your coffee, get your tea, get your soda. I hope no soda this morning. Very bad for your guts. Anyway, I digress. Let's get it, y'all. Welcome to the 4 Data Points Academy. Hope you're ready to learn. Otis has some great things in store for y'all today. Has a lot of great things. And don't forget, I am the CEO here at 4 Data Points Academy. Chief Energy Officer. Let's get it.
You got to tell black people, look, go ahead and introduce yourself. You got 10 seconds. You got to tell black folks, look, you got a limited amount of time. We'll go back into everything we did. I took third place in my 5th grade spelling bee. You know what it is. Shout out to Mr. McDonald, my social studies teacher. Homeroom in the building.
What's up to Pookie and Dookie? How y'all doing?
Yeah.
Good looking out, y'all.
Yes. And with 2 minutes, all of our credibility was shot. Shout out to Tavares, man. Hey, I appreciate you, brother.
Let's get it.
Ellis, what's going on, sir, man? Look, I don't often get a chance to introduce you because I'm on all looking at all these different screens, but you do some cool stuff, man. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and how they can find you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Otis. My name's Ellis San Jose. I'm a full-time investor in Southern California. I specialize in fixing dirty title so that we can buy these things at 20 to 50 cents on the dollar. Instagram is probably the best way to find me. It's FIBIUSA. My quick bio is when I'm playing full court basketball, I'm known as the guy who likes to cherry pick, and I can't dribble to my left. So that's what you need to know.
Shout out to Ellis. So if you ever run up on Ellis playing basketball, all you got to do is just stay to his left.
Shade me to my left, and I'm going to dish the ball. That's all you got to know.
Amen. Amen. All right, folks, we're going to get into the multifamily commercial. Stephen, what's going on? AOD, I see you down there. Catch, what's going on, brother? Stacy, Fernando, I see you guys down on Clubhouse with the red tickets. Go ahead and follow the room. So next time you come over, you can just come straight in, take your shoes off, grab something to drink and chill with us. That being said, folks on YouTube, hello to you all. Folks on Instagram, hello to you all. And you know what? I tell you, I swear, I'm just somebody's dad trying to figure out what all these buttons do. At the end of the day, that's what it is. I'm just somebody's dad trying to figure out what all these buttons do. All right. Shout out to the people on Instagram. All right, we're gonna get into multifamily. You guys know, I did my introduction, but I've spent most of my career in the multifamily commercial industry. I was able to bounce around in that industry at certain times, so I was able to get educated in certain other aspects of what they do. I was able to work in construction at one point. I got to TAD to a development team for a little while, so I got to see a lot, and I probably didn't appreciate it as much at the time because I'm thinking, man, I guess every time I get settled now, I move around and this and that. And it's funny, man, because God will put you in some situations and you won't appreciate it at the time. And then 15 years later, you're teaching all these different things. And these are all situations that you went through that you didn't appreciate at the time. So, just my career, it's a range. All right. I was a licensed real estate professional since 2002. You guys know I'm a real estate broker now. I spent the better part of 20 years in the multifamily commercial industry. I had a company that went on to generate 7 figures. That company cost me about $585 to start. So yes, you can do these things from nothing. I utilized an outsourcing business model and found people that were already doing a thing and then leverage my relationships to where those people, when they wanted that thing, air quotes, I just hired the people that were already doing it and marked the price up. And I did that in multiple areas of the country. That company generated 7 figures, and I think I spent maybe 4 hours a month on that situation. So on the non-real estate related side, on the entrepreneurial side, I've got some experience. All right. Now 7 figures is not a lot of money that let me not say, it's all relative, right? But you guys will soon see, if you haven't made 7 figures already, when you make it, that's really just the starting point. So when you hear me say 7 figures, that's not being braggadocious. I'm just telling you what it actually was and the effort that I put forth in doing that. But you get to the 7-figure mark, you're just now the conversation shifts to a scale up conversation and not so much, how much money can I make conversation. And that's why I tell people, look, if you guys are trying to get funding for your businesses, don't approach people until you've made $1 million, which sounds like a lot, but trust me, you just got to stay in the fight until you can figure out how to get there. That's your first benchmark. And then you can start having the conversation. You have proof of concept and all these other things. James Lewis is not here, but he is another person in our real estate family. He deals in the business acumen coaching, and he lives out there in Columbia. We also have Dr. Alfred Smith, who is not here. He is going to be heading up our personal development and elite sales training and leadership training. So he's got all. I tried to do a Instagram post for him introducing him, but there was too many certifications to list on the post, so I didn't even do it. Right, I'd had to find a different medium to advertise his skill. But he's going to be part of the family too. We have a free workshop coming up. A free workshop. Just because it's free doesn't mean it lacks value. So this is how you can come to our free workshop. It's virtual. It is. You go to 4datapoints.com, the number 4, DATAPOINTS, 4datapoints.com, and go over upcoming events, and you will see 2 workshops. You will see one that's not free, that is in person in Washington, D.C., July 26th, and you will see one that's free, March 22nd, right? So go to the free one. I like people to get to know me, right? A lot of the people that join our real estate family have been following me around for a few years. A lot of these folks have done deals with me. I think in the last 24 months, I think we're on our 7th deal for the people in our real estate family. So I think that's the best marketing, right? I think when people have a good feeling about you and they've worked with you and they kind of get an idea of who you are, I think that's the best marketing you can do is people bragging about you behind your back. So this workshop is going to be back to the basics. We're going to learn how to assess a deal. I'm going to throw in a few other things, but it's free, right? And it should be, well, let me not say that. I was about to say it should be a paid workshop. What I meant to say was it is going to be the equivalent of something you would pay for. Me, I'm just not, you know, that's small money. I'm like, you know, what am I going to charge? $100 and all right. Sorry, we're back to it. Trying to, I be forgetting I'm live and I got all these cameras and stuff in front of my face. You folks on TikTok, welcome. Uh oh. Okay, we just gonna let the music rock. All right, multifamily commercial. Oh boy. Okay. All right. If you guys hear me pause, it's because I have active projects going on all over the country. We've got a big deal going on in Texas. I got new build going on in Texas. I got a commercial building we're renovating in Texas, and I got some projects out in Georgia. So if you hear me pause, I'm not being rude. I just, you know, if it's one of my contractors or something, I'm gonna have to bring them on the line. And because I got all my phones hooked up, y'all probably gonna hear the call. I don't know about you guys on Clubhouse, but everybody else probably gonna hear the call. That being said, let's get into multifamily commercial. There are some basics. First of all, why multifamily commercial? This music is going to distract me. I can already tell. Oh, let me see if I can turn that down just a little bit. All right, or off. Off is fine. All right, so why multifamily commercial? And you hear people that teach multifamily commercial. They got multifamily commercial programs. I know a lot of people that have gotten burned in some of these programs. A lot of people that come to our real estate family have gotten burned in other programs. That's how they found us, right? They were like, "Look, I signed up for this program. It's not working. I don't get enough support." And then they do their research, and then they find old Otis James, and they wonder why. Otis, how come you don't have a boat and an airplane? Well, that's because I don't charge what they charge. I should start. I don't charge what they charge though. I want to bring real estate investing to the average person. And then hopefully we form a professional relationship. And then when I turn you into a seasoned real estate investor, we already have that bond, right? That professional relationship, right? We know, like, and trust each other. And then we can do some amazing things. And imagine that times 1,000. So I sacrifice some of the upfront costs for long-term benefit because we're going to be a solid group. Right now we're at 350 people, give or take. I think we may be over that a little bit for people that I mentor directly. We're going to take it to 1,000, and then we're going to have another conversation at 1,000. We're probably going to have to bring in more trainers and some other things, but it takes me a very long time to bring in a trainer because I have to vet them for a very long time. I don't hire people that are money driven. I don't bring people on my team that lack integrity. I don't bring people on my team that lack professionalism. You know, so there's some pretty strict requirements. Why? Because I built this thing along with some of my close associates and friends. And I'll just be honest with you guys. When you look like me, you've got to be more professional than everybody else out there doing it, right? Or when you look like us, you guys know what I'm saying. So we've got to be top tier in every aspect of what it is that we do. But we're here now. Jeremiah, what's up? I see you down there. Shay, what's going on? Is that David Hayes down there? What's going on, brother, on Clubhouse? We got all the usual suspects. If you guys have a question about anything in real estate, feel free to come up on stage, raise your hand. Tavares is going to be checking the chat. If I start checking chats for all these different platforms, I'll start getting what do you call it? Distracted. Ooh, look, a bird. Yeah, distracted like that. So let's get it going. First of all, what's the difference between multifamily and residential? Why do people gravitate towards multifamily, and why do some people gravitate towards residential? In my opinion, I think when you're building your career, you should do it all. You should know how to do it all. Hey, Eva over on on Instagram. You should know how to do it all because multifamily commercial takes longer to get paid. All right. So if I'm looking at a 20 unit apartment building and it's a value add, that takes a lot longer to exit than a single family home. I can be out in, 4 months. Right. So there are times when the multifamily commercial, it can go sideways. The risk is significantly higher than residential, but the rewards are higher also. So if multifamily commercial takes a hit, then guess what? I'm going back into residential. I'll put a group together. We'll do 4 or 5 flips, get that capital, and go buy another apartment building. So it's good to know all of the things so that you can survive as a real estate investor. We don't talk about the successes as far as getting your first deal because I don't consider getting your first deal a success. What I consider successful is a real estate investor that knows how to avoid a bad deal. And you guys have heard me say it before. I don't know people that had to file for bankruptcy because they missed out on a good deal. I know plenty of people that had to file for bankruptcy or at least bankrupt the entity that they were using because they didn't know how to avoid a bad deal. And multifamily commercial is really easy to get into. But if you don't know the operation side, if you don't know the construction side, the value add side, and all those things that come with it, all the required due diligence, then you can get into something that you can't get out of and it'll just bleed your pockets until you can no longer support it. Trust me, I'm carrying a few projects because of some things that were beyond our control. So, how are multifamily commercial assets valued? There's a lot of, all right, there's a lot of information in front of me. All right, how are they valued? They are valued based on their financials, all right? More specifically, the net operating income. So we get into stuff like cap rates and NOI, net operating income, and all that stuff. You got to understand when you're looking at a real estate investment, you need to be able to look at every single thing. All right, every single thing. So I don't just look at cap rates and some of the kind of the I was about to say over the counter stuff, kind of the surface stuff. Cap rates aren't 100% reliable. Okay, so let me explain what a cap rate is. A cap rate is the relationship between a building's net operating income and its market value. It's net operating income or what the building sold for. If you're looking at another building and what it sold for is assumed to be the market value, the net operating income and what the purchase price is of your building. That's assumed to be the market value. All right. So, for example, if you have a 20 unit building and the net operating income, let's say it's $30,000 a year, right? Let's say it sold for 300,000. Well, you take 30,000 divided by what it sold for, and that was a cap rate. You take 10%. So you take the average cap rate in the area, and when you're looking to see how much your building is going to be valued, you take the average cap rate in the area and you apply the equation to your subject property. Okay. So if my subject property is the net operating income is, let's say, $20,000, and the cap rate in the area, let's say 6.5%. 20,000 divided by 0.065, that is the value of the building for conversation's sake. Now, net operating cap rates can be manipulated. Why? Because net operating can be manipulated. How? Deferred maintenance, for example. All right. Deferred maintenance is enough to manipulate net operating income. If I defer maintenance, now I'm not talking about capital improvements, right? But capital improvements and maintenance, regular maintenance is different. Okay. They have different impacts on the financials. I won't get into capital improvements yet, but for those that are into the tax code and all that stuff, a capital improvement increases, it steps up the original cost basis of the property. And if you guys want to know more about that, I can jump into that. By the way, everything that I say that has to do with taxes, the law, whatever it is, vet with a qualified professional. I'm a big proponent for people learning from the internet, but not relying 100% on what you hear. I have qualified professionals that are in my life that I go to for a lot of different things. I encourage you to do the same thing. I'm sharing my experience, but I'm not qualified to advise on matters involving taxes or the law. I'm legally allowed to advise on matters of real estate, which is what I'm doing. I'm a licensed real estate broker in California. I'm a licensed real estate broker in Georgia. I mentioned I spent the better part of 20 years in the multifamily commercial industry. I was a mortgage broker for about 13 years. All of the things that have that involved in real estate. You know what? I know what it is. You know what I do. You guys are. I have my coffee at about 8:30 in the morning, and I jump on here at 9 in the morning. And the sodas there's a lot of drinks in there that are just like carbonated, sugar free and all that. But I keep mixing my pre-workout drink in with those drinks. And when I'm in a rush, I'll pour it and then I'll look at this glass and I'll be sipping this glass. I don't know why I sipped it just now as an example, but I'm sipping this glass. And then I realized too late that there's pre-workout in there. And I'm wondering why I got so much information. I just can't get it all out. And I keep tripping over adverbs and pronouns. That's why. All right. So cap rates, NOI, the cap rates aren't 100% reliable because they don't account for financing costs, right? Now, a cap rate is something that we use to compare assets, right? Let's say I'm looking at two buildings and I'm trying to determine which one I want to buy. Just because the buildings are similar, they could have similar financials, but one could be more attractive because I have better financing terms. So even though it's the same cap rate, that's not a fair comparison because it doesn't take into account financing costs. It also doesn't, it has, they have limited use for value add or development projects, right? Cap rates assume stabilized income. Stabilized means the property is already occupied. It's already up and running. Okay. So it assumes stabilized income. So if a property requires major renovations or a lease up, the current NOI may not reflect the future value, making the cap rate misleading. Okay. So we have to talk through that. So when you are learning from people and you're just talking about cap rates and net operating income, but you have a value add project, it's going to be a completely different ballgame. On the 1 to 4 units, I don't think I mean, you can figure, if you're going to flip a house, you could figure it out. You do it a couple times, trial and error, may cost you some money. You don't always need a mentor for that. Just because it's so, I think once you start accumulating multiple homes and doing multiple projects, and then you're trying to scale up, then you may need a mentor. That's different. Multifamily commercial, you need a mentor. If you have not been in that industry, you need a mentor. And a lot of the programs that you guys get into for multifamily commercial, people get let down because they don't offer the support needed for you to do a standalone deal on your own for multifamily commercial. That's why people start filtering into 4 Data Points Academy. All right. So NOI cap rate, net operating income cap rate. Cap rates are not 100% reliable. You know what is reliable? Cash flow is reliable. Okay. So when I'm looking at a multifamily commercial deal, I got to run the 4 data points on it. What are the 4 data points? What is the cost? What is the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? So I'm going to explain this, and then we're going to get into the operation side, the landlording side. And one of the things I can appreciate about the multifamily commercial industry is I learned a lot, and I was able to get in front of some people that I probably wouldn't have been able to sit, in a room with, had I not been in that industry. So I was able to learn a lot really, really fast. And there was a lot of guys in there that taught me some things that, you know, uh, that changed my thought process. I used to work for a company called BRE. This is good, really cool people, really good company. And one of the leaders back that time, the CFO, was a gentleman by the name of John Shishel. And I don't know what he's doing today, but I'm a people person, so I can tell when people are in positions of leadership and they make better managers, and I can tell when people are in positions of leadership and they make really good leaders. And John was one of the people that I thought was a really good leader that stood out to me, and we were able to have some kind of offline conversations. And one of the conversations that we had was that changed my perspective on things was I asked him, I said, how do you ask somebody for $300 million? Because it was his job to go and raise the capital. And he told me something. He goes, same way you ask for $20, you just change the numbers, right? And that changed my perspective on how I view, big money, larger money, and all of these other things. And I remember that every time I go out to do a deal, or every time I'm going in to negotiate with the city, or in some cases, if I have to go overseas and negotiate with some of these foreign governments and things that I've had the opportunity to do them before. So it's just like $20, just change the numbers. All right. All right. So now We're going to approach multifamily like it's just like $20, but change the numbers. Okay. So I'm going to do, I want to do two scenarios. I want to do a single family home and I want to do a multifamily commercial building. All right. Now, single family home, let's run the 4 data points on it. Remember, the 4 data points are: what is the cost? What is the cost? What is the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? You guys are funny. How much income can it generate? So we're going to take a typical, let's say a property, let's call it a property in a neighborhood where homes are selling for $100,000, right? Remember, so this is going to be a 4 data points lesson. Then we're going to apply it to multifamily commercial. All right. So when I'm looking at a property, I got the address. I just write down the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. What does it cost, or what am I willing to pay? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? Once you can answer those questions and you understand what the answers tell you, you're ahead of 95% of the people getting into the real estate investing space, the new folks. And we're going to beat this to death on our workshop, that free workshop. So again, you guys that are just tuning in, that free workshop is, just go to our website. You got to register, right? 4datapoints.com, the number 4, DATAPOINTS.com. Go to upcoming events. You'll see it there. Just register for it. All right. What does it cost? Let's assume this old beat up house costs $30,000. And let's assume that it needs another $30,000 worth of work. Now, we already know that houses in that area are selling for $100,000. And let's go ahead and assume that this particular home rents for, let's call it $1,000 a month. That's your 4 data points. What does it cost? 30 grand. What does it cost to fix up? Another 30 grand. What's it going to be worth when I'm done? 100 grand. How much income can it generate? $1,000 a month. You ever get sick and tired of hearing your own voice? No, just me. Okay. All right. Now, what does this tell us? I know that it costs 30. It's 30 to fix up. I know I'm all in 60. Okay. I know it's going to be worth 100,000 when I'm done. And at this point, I don't know if I want to keep it or sell it. If I'm all in 60, and just for the sake of this conversation, I'm not going to add in closing costs, points and fees and all that stuff. You can add those in and run the same numbers. It's the same exact formula, right? But for concept, I'm going to leave them out. So I'm going to be all in 60, 30 to buy it, 30 to fix it up. I know it's going to be worth $100,000 when I'm done. Now, if it's going to be worth $100,000 when I'm done, I got to say, all right, well, if I'm going to be all in 60, give or take, and it's going to be worth 100, then there's a possible profit of 40 grand. Now, again, I'm not talking about points, fees, the cost to sell it and all that. All right. So the delta is 40 grand. Perfect. It's easy math, right? But what if I want to keep it for long term? You guys keep talking about generational wealth. How do you attain that if you keep selling everything, right? Now, sometimes we got to sell some stuff, but ultimately we want to keep a portfolio and be in a position where all we got to do is check our direct deposit, make sure all the funds made it there. All right. It's a mailbox money. All right. So if I want to keep it, I already know it's worth 100 grand. I already know that I can do a cash out refinance on 100 grand for 75, 80%. 80% is typically the max. If you do higher than that, you got to pay mortgage insurance. It cuts into your profit. But so let's say 80%. Well, 80% of 100 grand is 80,000. So what does that tell me? I can get a mortgage for 80,000. Now remember, we run the 4 data points in the beginning. And we're looking at these numbers to determine what we're going to do with the property, see if it fits in our buy box. And we also got to understand that it's not always, is it a good deal or is it a bad deal? Sometimes it's, is it a good deal for you or is it a bad deal for you? It just tells you what it is. And I also want to say that this is not the end all be all for due diligence. This is just to help you rule out a deal. If I go to my inbox right now, I probably got 20 people sending me deals in there. I can pretty much bet 19 of them are trash, but that one may have potential. But I got to run the 4 data points on all of them to make sure that I'm not wasting my time. I can usually run these 4 data points based on the information they send me. I can rule them out usually in about 2 minutes or so. All right. So if I want to keep it, I got to do a cash out refinance. I can max it out at 80%. In this case, since homes are going to sell or selling in this neighborhood for 100,000, 80% of that is 80 grand. So $80,000, I owe 60. I'm all in 60. And let's assume that since we are real estate investors and we use other people's money, that the 60,000 that I owe, let's say I borrowed it. Now, can you get that low of a loan amount from a lender? Probably not. But you can borrow it from consumer credit sites like Lending Club or Best Egg or the million consumer credit sites out there, and then pay for it cash, but you still owe those sites an interest rate. So let's position those sites as your lender. However you got it, we borrowed everything. Okay. So the financing that we use to borrow it and fix it up, that's not going to be cheap financing. That's expensive. We use hard money, or what we call asset-based lending. They qualify us primarily on the equity in the property or the income that it generates, but it's expensive. But they move faster. I do a whole nother class on how to finance this stuff. So even if we decide to keep it, we've got to refinance anyway, because the funds that we use, the funds that we borrowed to buy that property and fix it up, those programs aren't designed to go long term. You need to be able to exit out of them. All right. So the after repair value, home's going to be worth 100,000 when we finish. We're all in 60. If we sell it, we get 40 minus points, fees, and cost to sell. If we do a cash out refinance, we don't get as much money because we can only get a mortgage for 80%, and we're all in 60. So we're going to net 20 on that. But that 20 is tax free because it's not a taxable event. And keep in mind, because we're not done, right? We got to go to data point number 4. How much income does it generate? Well, why do we need to know that? Because if we're going to keep it, we need to make sure that it generates enough income to service the debt. I'll go over all these again, and then I'm going to go straight to multifamily. We need to make sure that it's going to generate enough income to service the debt. Okay. Now, at 80%, at 80% for the mortgage, that's probably going to run you, let's say it runs you about $700 a month, depending on the interest rate. It could be 750. I don't know what your interest rate is. Let's say 700 a month. We know the property rents out for $1,000 a month. So we're going to net $300 a month. So we got two options, and you folks on Clubhouse, I want you to put which option is better in the chat. So if we utilize the Burr method, which doesn't work everywhere, but here it probably would. If we keep the property, we make $20,000 tax free, and it cash flows $300 a month. That's the first thing. Okay. If we don't keep the property, we sell it, doesn't cash flow anything because we don't have it anymore, and we make $40,000, but then we're out. Put a 1 in the chat if the first scenario was better. You make 20 grand, and then you make $300 a month in perpetuity, or you sell it for the 40 grand. Put 2 if you would sell it. Put a 1 if you would do the cash out refinance. Jeffrey Broussard in the building. All right. All right. Kavita says 1. Ellis says 1. Jackie says 1. Terry says 1. Jeremiah says 1. Jones says 1. All like 90% of these people are already in our real estate family, folks. So if they answer 1, you can reach out to them and see if what it is. Ellis knows what it is. He says he's allergic to cap gain taxes. He's talking about capital gains tax. So everybody put 1. Nobody put 2. Okay. So what Ellis said. Okay. All right. So everybody says 1. There is no correct answer. Okay. It's what's better for you based on your financial objective. Now, Ellis said he doesn't like capital gains tax. I don't like capital gains tax either. All right. But what if I'm looking at a much bigger play? All right. What if I'm looking at a much bigger play? And the difference between 20,000 and 40,000 is not that much. We're talking about $20,000. Anything I can do with 40,000, I could probably do with 20,000. But we have to take things into consideration. What's the cost to sell? That comes from the 40,000, right? If we're adding any concessions or whatever, that cost that cuts into our profit. If it takes a while to sell, the carrying cost cuts into our profit. Because keep in mind, it's not being rented out; it's just sitting vacant. So we can call that vacancy loss, but it hasn't sold, so you're just paying the carrying costs. So all of these variables you have to take into consideration to see if that's going to be a good play for you. Now, to avoid capital gains tax, I would 1031 tax-free exchange into a bigger property, but also keep in mind I got 45 days to find another property, and then I got 180 days to close. Last time I looked, right? Make sure you guys consult with a tax professional when you guys are doing any of this stuff. So we have to take that into consideration. I would probably go with option number one because I want to add it. I may want to add it to my portfolio, but I invest all over the country. And is it worth adding to my portfolio if I've got to go out there and do, because one flight out there, this thing nets $300 a month, one flight out there and hotel, I'm already in 2,500 because I ain't staying in no Howard Johnson. So y'all to be inviting me to your city. Don't believe we ain't doing. I only stay in hotels that have lobbies. I don't stay in hotels where you can enter from the outside. That's another conversation. Some of y'all know what I mean. All right. So is it a good deal? Is it a good deal for you? That's what you need to consider. But the goal is to understand and make sure you look at everything so you don't jump in on something just based off the surface information that you see. That's what being a real estate investor actually is. And then once you understand that, then you can understand how to buy it creatively so you don't have to borrow all this and you can get into the fancy stuff later. Okay. Now we're going to take it to multifamily commercial. Okay. And let me pull up my notes on that 10 unit apartment. Well, I don't have to do it. I've done this so many times. So this is our apartment building now. Okay. So we're going to imagine a 10 unit apartment building. I'm gonna write this down so I can 10 unit apartment building, 6 units. You guys in our real estate family, you guys should know this by heart. 6 units are occupied. 4 units are vacant. Now, what we're going to do once I give you the details of this property, then we're going to go back and look at it, and then we are going to run the 4 data points on it. Man, Ellis, you all over the place, man. You popping up on Instagram, Clubhouse. Go ahead, man. Two places at one time. All right. Any of you guys on TikTok that want to come up, I'll invite you up. Just send the request or whatever. All right. So 10 unit apartment building. 6 units are occupied. 4 units are vacant. The occupied units are getting $500 a month. The vacant units are getting zero. Why? Because they're vacant. But let's say the market rent in that area is $700 a month. Okay. We'll say expenses run 20%. Okay. We'll say there's no debt on the property. And let's say those 4 vacant units, let's say they're going to cost about $8,000. They just need a facelift. They're not full rehabs. They just need a facelift. $8,000 a piece times 4. So you are looking at $32,000 in rehab costs. All right. Ellis said, wait for me on TikTok. I'm gonna be there too. Ellis, if you come on TikTok, let me know so I can pull you up. I think you can request to come up. All right. All right. So this is our building. 10 units, 6 occupied at $500 a month. That's the rental income. 4 units are vacant. Market rent in the area, $700 a month. There's no debt. We're going to account 20% for expenses. Okay. We're going to run the 4 data points on this property. Right now, we got to see what the property is worth. Now, you're funny, man. How much is this property worth? Now, remember, net operating income divided by the cap rate equals the value. Now, we already understand net operating income can be manipulated. So there's a whole slew of due diligence that we do should we decide to move forward on this property. Okay. But the surface stuff you can verify pretty easily. Now, there's some basic documents we look at when we're trying to confirm this stuff, but we don't have access to those documents. We only have access to certain information while we're making the decision-making process to put in an offer. Once we put in an offer, I structure my offers so that we can review those documents. Okay. During our inspection period, one of the requirements in multifamily commercial everywhere, you should always have an inspection period. But one of the requirements that I incorporate into my offers is the financials. I have a list of financials that I want. I want the utility bills. I want what we call a trailing 12, which is it's usually a spreadsheet, income and expenses for the previous 12 months. If they are using property management software, I want to know what kind so I can know what the capabilities are. I want to look at resident correspondence and a whole bunch of other things. I want to look at lease agreements and any contracts that they have. I have a whole list of things that I want to see. But my main point is the inspection period doesn't start until I receive all of those things. So that's how I structure my offers. The inspection period doesn't start until I receive all of those documents or I receive confirmation that those documents don't exist. That's a very important part. Okay. Now let's run the 4 data points. 4 data points on a property. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? All right. So what does this one cost? Well, we don't know. Let's say it's not for sale. A lot of the stuff we do is off market. So what does it cost translates into what am I willing to pay? So what am I willing to pay? I don't know. Let's see what it's worth. We're going to do the basic, shoot, I'm running out of devices. I need a calculator. All right. All right. I'm glad I got pants on because sometimes I'll be here in my pajama pants and forget that I'm on camera, and then I'll roll out to go pick up something. They'll be like, "Oh, you got Christmas pajama pants on. You live in the you live in the relaxed life." So let me see. I got on sweats right now, but so I'm okay.
Hey,
Yeah.
real quick, Otis. I wanted to make sure that we didn't pass up on Shay. He had a question. Did we cover this? Can you go over or give tips for calculating rehab costs? So
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So when you're looking at rehab costs and you guys aren't contractors, and we spend a whole week on just rehabs. And then I typically have to hold people's hand through their rehab process in our real estate family. But if you don't know how to understand if you don't understand how to calculate rehab costs, do this. And we take it in 3 phases, right? And they're simple. The first phase is go in there and make every observation you can about what's wrong with the property. Right now, I don't know whether the person in this scenario is doing a property inspection or not, but let's say you're not doing a property inspection. Now, go in there and make every observation. So you walk into, and I do the same thing when I'm turning a unit. So if I have to fly out and I'm getting a new tenant in, I'll go out and I got to turn the house. I don't do apartments. I wouldn't fly out there just to do this for an apartment because it wouldn't be worth my time. But I've had homes with some long-term tenants, and the turn costs are up in the 20 and 30 thousands, right? Because I've been there so long. So what I'll do is I'll go out there and I'll go into every room. I'll have my iPad. I'll take pictures of every room, and then I'll note everything that I want done. I just won't put a price next to it. So I'll go into the master bedroom and say, all right, this is going to be a full repaint. Trim needs to be repainted. I'm going to swap out the ceiling fan for a more modern one. Light switches need to be changed. I think I want to add a dimmer in here. Interior paint, flooring is going to be changed, but I'm going to use the same flooring that I'm using for the rest of the house. And then I'll go into the master bathroom, and then I'll just do the same thing, right? So by the time I'm finished, I have an itemized list of everything that I want done to that property. I'll transfer that information to a spreadsheet so that somebody can complete the dollar amount for each line item. And then I'll title it scope of work. That'll be my scope of work. And then when I have vendors or contractors come out, I will hand them the scope of work. That's phase 2, right? Put it in a format that you can hand somebody. And then phase 3 is actually bid it out to different contractors. And the reason that I do that is because I need to be able to look at an itemized list of the improvements so that if I need to pivot, I can adjust the math to support that pivot, right? Now, if I just have a contractor come out and they look at everything, right? I tell them everything that I want to do. And he says, yeah, I can do this for about 50,000. First of all, I don't know how that's divided up between materials and labor, because sometimes I buy my own materials. And I don't know the itemized version of what that 50,000 entails. And what I mean by that is if I'm mid-project and I'm paying him 50,000 or her 50,000, the contractor, and I decide, you know what, we're not going to do the bathrooms. Okay. I need to know how to adjust my budget so that when I remove those bathrooms, I know how much money I have to work with. And if it's not itemized, if he just said 50,000 for the whole thing, then he could come back and say, oh, well, I was going to do the bathrooms for, 1,500 a piece, 3,000 a piece. Okay. So I need to have some clarification, and I utilize the scope of work to be able to do that. And thank you for the people on TikTok that are giving me those likes. I think that's a good thing. I don't know I made 3 cents my last live. I don't know where that 3 cent went or how it got there, but TikTok told me, hey, you got 3 cents. So, I'm probably blowing up the internet right now, right behind the Kardashians. I'm probably really close to, no.
There it is. You got it. You got it.
All right. Okay, cool. Who is that? Money bags. All right. Appreciate you, brother. So, so that's how you deal with the scope of work, managing the rehab. when you get into a rehab and you're doing a major rehab, it is way more work than you see on HGTV. There's just too many things that can go wrong with the rehab process for you to just go in. You'll figure it out eventually, but I suggest you do a very small basic rehab before you work your way up to the big ones. The folks that are in our real estate family that took on major rehabs really early, I had to get way more involved then. It wasn't always something I could do from a distance. I've had to fly out to some of my students' projects. All right. Now, back to multifamily commercial. So we're running the 4 data points on this property. We're trying to figure out what it costs. Okay. Now, because multifamily commercial is valued based on the financials, more specifically, the net operating income divided by the cap rate. What's our net operating income? We got to figure that out first, right? Let me see. So we said 10 units. We said 6 of them are occupied at $500 a piece. That's $3,000. And $3,000 times 12 is $36,000. And in this particular case, I'll back out 20% for expenses. It can get expensive. And so I'll back out 20% for expenses. Now, let me pause there just for a second. Every real estate investor worth their weight in salt is probably going to tell you, no, I take out 35% to 45% for expenses. And they're not wrong. Okay. So when I say 20%, I have a reason for 20%. This is only 10 units. And a lot of these issues that come up, I can manage, myself in the beginning before I put it on autopilot and give it to a manager. Now, keep in mind, when I say 20% for expenses, understand that I come from the multifamily commercial industry and I was overseeing $650 million in multifamily commercial assets and was doing budgets totaling over $16 million annually in expenses, right? 80 million in gross potential rent. Every year I was doing these budgets. So when I've seen every single possible line item that you can imagine on these financials, right? I say all that. That's a nice way of me saying, if I say 20%, it's 20%. Sorry. Let me take some of that bass out of my voice. All right. So $500 a month times 6 units that are occupied, $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year, back out 20%. That's $28,800. If the cap rate is 6.5%, $28,800 divided by 0.065 is $443,077. That's what our property is worth, $443,077. And I've done this exercise so many times that I don't have to do the math. I just memorize the math. But if you're looking at me on Instagram and TikTok, I'm like writing in the air like I'm doing calculations myself. Somebody out there is like, man, this guy's a prodigy in math. But no, it's not the case. All right. So now that we have the value, $443,077. Now remember, we're just looking at the 4 data points on this. So what does it cost? We don't know yet. It's off market. There's no price attached to it. What are we willing to pay? We don't know yet. We've got to look at the other data points first. All right. We already looked at data point number 4, how much income it can generate, because the income helps us come up with the gross and we work the math back from there. All right. We looked at the value. So we're not looking at after repair value. We're looking at the current value based on the current financials. So I'm going to write, just like I did for that single family home, I'm going to write down 1, 2, 3, 4. What is the cost? What does the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? Now, it's worth $443,077 now. All right, I'm going to write that down. What is the cost to fix up? Now, those 4 units we talked about were the market value of $700 a month, but it's going to cost us $8,000 to fix up each of those units. Times 4 is 32 grand. So what is the cost to fix up? We're going to say 32 grand. Okay. 32 grand. How much income does it generate? We already did that. $3,000 a month. Now let's figure out what we're going to pay for this. Okay. Now it's worth $443,077. That's what it's worth. Okay. And there's some vacancy there, and we've got to fix that vacancy. And in order for us to do that, it's going to cost us about $32,000. All right. So this is how I would structure this. I would give them exactly what it's worth. And this is why cap rates and a lot of the other formulas don't really have as much as an effect as people would like to think on value add. Okay. In this particular scenario, It's worth $443,077. Not only am I going to give them what it's worth, $443,077, I'm going to give them $20,000 more than it's worth. Now, put a 1 in the chat. Let me go back to Clubhouse chat real quick. Tavares, is there anything in the repeat? Yep. Amen. 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 All right. Cool. Now, you guys listening on Clubhouse, what's wrong with me giving them $20,000 more than this property is worth? Somebody just, what's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong.
Who is that? Is that who said that? Oh,
That's Tavares.
oh,
baby.
okay.
You
All
know what
right.
it is.
Yeah, you had some extra bass in your voice with that. Nothing's wrong.
Well, you know, that's my Billy D. You know what I'm saying?
I thought that was the Holy Spirit talking. Nothing's wrong. I was like, I know, Lord. I'm about to tell him, Lord. All right. Put a let me see. Let me check the chat. So Jeremiah says nothing's wrong. So you guys mean to tell me that there are times when it's okay to pay more for a property than it's actually worth? We didn't apply the 70% rule. We didn't apply for any of we didn't take into consideration any of the work that has to be done. The property's worth $443,77. You're telling me that it is okay to not just pay what it's worth, but pay more than what it's worth. Put a 1 in the chat these aren't always trick questions too, by the way, folks. Put a 1 in the chat if it's okay to pay more than a property's worth. Put a 2 in the chat if it's not. Put a 1.
Well, are you looking to, Otis, are you looking to get your name on the deed?
Well, eventually.
Okay, cool. But before we do any money transfer, right? Like you're looking to go into this and put your name on the deed. So in this case, I'd say yes, if that's what you're doing.
Well, we're not. So I know what you're talking about. You're talking about structuring it creatively. So we're not going there yet. We're not going there yet. We're just talking about basic. Is it okay to pay more for a property than it's worth? Based on potential value, it's okay. Go ahead, Terry. Terry be showing up to class too. Well, I knew she was going to get it. Seller financing, or you plan to sell it for more? We don't know yet. We're just still working out the 4 data points. All right. But there is a seller financing component to it. All right. Okay. So I'm going to give them more than the property is worth because remember, as real estate investors, we got to look at everything. The in-place rents right now are $3,000 a month. We know the net operating income determines the value of the building primarily, right? So if we can increase that net operating income, my folks over at Win, I'm trying to invite, invitation sent. Folks over on TikTok at the Win in Real Estate, my boy Anthony Glenn and his team down there killing the game, boy. By the way, if you guys know Tony Glenn and the Win in Real Estate team, make sure you check in with them, especially if you're ex-military or utilizing VA loans. They are the holy. Oh, I was about to say the Holy Quran. I follow Jesus. I'm sorry. They are the Holy Grail of servicing military folks. It doesn't get no better than that. So shout out to the Win in Real Estate folks. Now, I would pay $20,000 more than the property is worth because remember, we look at everything. We know how much it's making now, but we also know the potential that it can make, the potential rent. We know that 4 of those units are vacant. If 4 of those units are vacant and we spend the money, the $32,000 to fix 4 of those units up, and we would borrow that, by the way, then we should already know what the profit potential is. And out of that profit potential, we should be able to determine whether an additional 20,000, because we're going to have them, I'm going to have them get creative with me, right? So it's not just going to be a standard real estate purchase, right? It can be, but I like to come in with as little money as possible. So it's not going to be a standard real estate purchase. So I'll tell you how to work a seller financing component into it. What Tavares was talking about is an exercise we did where we learned how to pay out of your exit strategy. All right. But let's do the math to see how much profit we have to work with to see if that $20,000 is worth it. Now, I'll go over it again. Now, the property is worth what it's worth now. Let's go through that. It's generating $3,000 a month. Now, remember, multifamily commercial, 5 units or above, is not valued based on what the building, I don't care if the building's identical. It's not valued based on what the building next door sold for. It's valued based on the income that it generates, primarily the net operating income. And right now it's generating $3,000 a month gross, $36,000 a year gross, back out 20%, net operating income is $28,800. You take the cap rate in the area and you take the subject property's net operating income and divide it by the cap rate. Let's say the cap rate is 6.5%. That means our 28,800 of net operating income divided by 0.065 is $443,077. That's not an opinion. That's based off their financials. Now, is it really worth that? Well, they could be fudging the NOI numbers, right? Like, again, but for sake of this conversation, that's a pretty legitimate argument that it's worth $443,077. Now, let's do the math, because I know that the market rent in that area is $700 a month. And I know that I can borrow the money to fix those 4 units up. So now let me do the calculation based on the potential rent. Now I need somebody to do. Anybody got a calculator on Clubhouse? Let's do a Clubhouse. Tavares, you gotta hold on one second.
I got you. What's up?
Okay. Unable to verify. Okay. Okay. All right. TikTok be tripping. TikTok be tripping. They be putting alerts up on them. Your sound is out. Okay. Put it back. Okay. All right. All right. Now let's do some more math. All right, Tavares. So it's already making $3,000 a month. Okay. If we get those 4 units filled at market rent, we can get $700 per unit. We knew that before we even engaged in this process. 700 times 4 units is 2,800. So we're at a total of $5,800 a month. What's 5,800? 5,800 times 12.
69,600.
69,000. Yep, 69,600. That's right. Now do this. 69,600 times 0.80. What do you come up with?
$55,680.
$55,680. So $55,680 divided by 0.065. 0.065 is what? Should come up to about 856,000 and some change.
You got it. 856,615.
856,615. Okay? Correct. Now, I already know that is the potential value of the building. So what it's worth now, based on the current financials, is $443,077. But I know after we fix those units up and increase the net operating income, because we're increasing the gross potential, we're increasing net operating income, I can make the property worth $856,615. Now, do this last equation. Well, maybe not the last. $856,615 times 0.80.
0.80. 685,292.
685,292. That last calculation represents the cash out refinance once I complete the value. Once I added that value. So I've added that value. The property is now worth $856,615. That means, and I can get a mortgage for $685,000 and change. If I get a mortgage for $685,000 and change, then I can take that and pay off the seller the $443,077. I could pay back wherever I borrowed the money to fix it up at $32,000, right? I probably would have borrowed $34,000, so I could start paying them back with their own money. So let's call it $34,000. If there was a vendor that I brought in, that maybe I always use the example of a landscaper on the property, and instead of him charging me $2,500 to do some curb appeal, I tell him to double it and give me a net $120. So I incorporate that in, right? Let's call that $5,000. And I know how much I have left over, right? I know how much I have left over. So if I pay off everybody, the seller plus their incentives, plus the money I used to fix it up, plus the vendor that I use to, maybe do some minor property stuff, I'm all in for about $500,000, $502,077 to be exact. That's how much I'm all in. $502,077. I just got a mortgage for $685,000 and change. What happens when I get that mortgage and I pay everybody off? There's still some money left over, right? There should be about $183,000 left over tax-free. Right? So because we increased the financials of the building, we increased not just the potential rent, but the potential value of the building. And as long as I got into contract with that seller, see, this is the important part. As long as I got into contract with that seller or structured it so they are locked in at that purchase price, which they should be, because I gave them what it was actually worth, and then I gave them an additional $20,000 to work with me. That probably would have delayed closing for about 60 days or so. Tavares, you got some feedback going on. Let me put you on mute just for 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
That's funny, man. We do see a lot of folks. We used to do these clubhouse rooms where it would go for hours. And then, at some of these rooms that I was talking about real estate, there was like 600-700 people in there, and people be on stage and they come off mute and then they forget that they was off mute, and then they go use the bathroom or something, and and I'd have to I'm trying to yell at them. Let's go, but we don't want to hear you. All right. So basically, we got into contract for one particular price. And when Tavares was talking about getting your name on the deed, he was talking about how we're able to pay out of your exit strategy. So what would have happened was, what's up, Keisha? What would have happened was, let's take that same scenario where the property is worth $443,077. I have a conversation with them and get in a contract for $443,077. And then I give them an additional $20,000 for working with me. I owe it, but I haven't paid it. And the way that we pay out of our exit strategy is I have them deed the property over to me, but I'm still on the hook for that debt. So this is where people have a hard time really negotiating these things, because it's hard to articulate it to somebody that's not a real estate investor. So basically that $443,077 plus a $20,000 incentive, we take that as a debt. So what document evidence is a debt? Promissory note. So the promissory note, we go ahead and execute for the full amount that I owe them. Now, the promissory note by itself, I mean, in court, you can, enforce it, so it's not unenforceable, but that's too much trouble, right? And why would the seller want to have to take me to court and do all of these things that cost time and money in order for me to make them whole if I default? So we take what we call a security instrument. Security instrument it's just a document that, when registered with the county, it takes that note, that debt, and attaches it to the property. So it becomes first position lien on the property. That is very, very important, because once that's done, and when it's done the right way, I could go ahead and leave the face of the earth. If I default on our agreement, they can foreclose and take the property back, just like a lender can foreclose if you don't make your mortgage payment. So I position them as the lender. So when we walk away initially from the closing table, they are now no longer the seller. I'm the property owner. They are the lender. That debt, our agreement, is attached to the property. But because I'm the owner, I can borrow third-party funds. Now, I didn't have to be the owner to borrow third-party funds from like a consumer credit, like lending club, or because they don't care. That debt is to me. They're not attaching it to the property, so they don't care what liens I have on the property, right? But if I was borrowing it from a mortgage company, right, a lender, a mortgage lender, a real estate lender, then they would want to come in first position in front of the seller. Like, so it would be it'd be more difficult, right? There's a way to do it that way, but that's a separate conversation. So we're paying out of our exit strategy now. I own the property now. I just haven't paid for it yet, but I'm able to borrow funds and increase the value of the property. So now that I've increased the value, and we increased the value from $443,077 to $856,615 by getting 40% of those units leased at current market value, right? Remember, there was 4 vacant ones. So now that we've got those units leased, the property is 100% leased. I've got 4 units renting for $700 a month. I got the initial 6 units renting for $500 a month. So the net or the gross rent each month went from $3,000 to $5,800. And then we just did the calculations based on the new rent. Increased the value, cashed out 80% on a mortgage. When I got that mortgage, I paid back everybody. So guess what? My new mortgage replaces the old mortgage. Who was the old mortgage in favor of? The seller that I repositioned as the lender. So the seller made out because they got what the property was worth, and they got another $20,000 for their trouble. I ran the 4 data points on this property, so I knew how much profit there was going to be. So that $20,000 to the average consumer outside looking in, why would you pay $20,000 more than a property is worth? But I'm a value add investor, so I can understand the value add component. And that $20,000 was little to nothing compared to what I was going to make. I made $183,000 on that property after the fact, right? After that $20,000 was paid out. So that's why multifamily is more attractive to a lot of people because of what you can do with it, right? You have more control over the value than 1 to 4 unit. Now, again, I'm not telling you guys what's better or worse. I don't care. I'll do both. Okay. And I always want to manage expectations too, because there's too many people out here trying to sell you guys a dream. Just because something is possible does not mean it's likely. And I say that every time I live stream. Just because something's possible does not mean it's likely. What that means is on paper, I can teach you how to do this. I can teach you how to do this at one workshop. All right. But there's a lot of things that you don't see about this that because people, when they come into our real estate family, they stay with me, period. So if something's not work, there's no end date to where, oh, you're done with the program, go be great. They're with me forever. And if something's not working, then we have to see what it is. And we either learn from it and fix it, or we go a different direction. Right. So if I'm teaching people the mechanics of putting these deals together, but nobody can do any and they don't know why, then I've failed you as a mentor. All right. So let's manage some expectations with this deal. Yes, we got that property for little to no money up front. Okay. That doesn't mean the property is free. That means we pay out of our exit. Okay. Also, how did I find the people? How did I find the people? Because remember, it's an off market property. How did I find them to even determine to have the conversation in the first place? Right. So I must be putting some time and resources into letting people know who I am. Remember, it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who knows what you do. In the real estate education space, the only reason a lot of these other organizations still exist is because people don't know who I am. Period. We give the best support. We have the best product, and I'll go toe to toe with any of them. All right, but it takes marketing. Right. So that takes money. So now we're talking about we're using this example, this one deal example, but we're talking about a real estate investing business. So when people come into our real estate family, I teach them the mechanics first, and then I teach them how to have a real estate investing business. And then we can get into vertical integration and all these other things. That's why a lot of programs don't work, because they're just teaching you the stuff. Some of this stuff you can just Google. Matter of fact, look, I've had people pay me so if you go to our website and you book an appointment for a consultation for a residential deal, it's $350. If it's a multifamily commercial deal, because there's more significant underwriting, it's $750 for 1 hour. Now, there's been some people that I had to refund their money, because you got to pay first. I had to refund I didn't have to, but I refunded their money because they were asking me things that they could have just Googled. Right? Like that, I wasn't really leveraging a lot of my experience. And then I told those folks, I was like, look, just come to the free stuff and just ask a question if it asks a question, right? I'm not going $750, or for those folks that are in an active deal right now, and the deal's going to fall apart. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake, right? That's what that's for. Right. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about managing these expectations. Some of this stuff you can just Google, right? I don't suggest you go do a deal off of stuff you Googled, but I'm saying for information purposes, or if you just have a quick question or whatever, Google that stuff. But multifamily commercial gets you to your financial objective quicker, though there's more risk. All right. So again, we're managing expectations. I just said, okay, well, how did I even find the people to have the conversations to structure that deal in the first place? Well, now we get into, okay, well, how do we find tired landlords? Okay, well, most people go to code enforcement, look at the code violators, see if there's any landlords on there for any properties that they're interested in. If the water company is managed by the municipality, right, the city owns the water, I go and look for the shutoff list. And under the Freedom of Information Act, you may be able to get it. Check with your county. It's going to be different. If the city doesn't manage the utilities, then the Freedom of Information Act doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to private companies, as far as I know. Right. So I'll look for the utility shutoff list and see if there's any tired landlords. I'll look for, I'll go to the housing authority and see a list of all of the landlords and see if any of those are multifamily commercial. Because if you've managed any Section 8, there's probably a point in time where you're like, I don't want to be a landlord anymore. Right? Or I'll look for properties with owners that have owned the property for over a certain time, because I'm targeting baby boomers that maybe want to go into retirement, and maybe they don't want to take the big tax hit from just selling a property. All right. Maybe we can structure something where I can include them in the deal, give them some ongoing income and some money out of the exit. So the point I'm trying to make is we're not, it's, don't get sold a dream. Understand that just because you know how to structure these deals this way doesn't mean you're going to be able to bring it to fruition. Okay. Because you have to know everything. Now, also on the landlord side, you got to understand how to be a landlord. We did a whole workshop called Landlord Launchpad, and I basically leverage all of my experience in the multifamily commercial industry, overseeing 3,000 units or just under that at one time. So I've seen everything, and I've been a landlord in a bunch of different states, and I've bought properties in a bunch of different states. I didn't even see the properties up front. Oop, sorry about that. I didn't even see the property up front. Okay. So there's a way to do all these things. So just be careful when you guys are hearing these strategies and all the clickbait stuff where you can just buy a house for $0. Okay. Yes, that's possible, but acquiring the real estate is the easy part. Making it profitable is a little bit tougher. That requires some experience. Being able to exit in a way that helps you meet your financial objective makes it a little more complicated. Right? Because I know a bunch of investors, they'll offload non-performing assets, make them look attractive, and you could basically just get them with a signature. But if you don't run the 4 data points on these properties, right? If you don't ask those 4 questions, what does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? You're going to get yourself into a lot of trouble. All right. Now I will go to questions. Just give me a call. Okay. All right. Can you restate the promissory note and your registration of it and how that allows you to mortgage? Okay, so promissory note is just it's just a note, and the security instrument is one of 2 documents. It's either a mortgage agreement or a deed of trust. So sometimes you'll hear a note secured by a deed of trust. All right. Which one you use is determined by the state that you live in. So when you open up escrow and tell them what you're doing, they will draft the documents for you, and they'll also register them with the county. They'll record it. So that's what you're paying when you pay an escrow fee. You're paying for them to record it and do the due diligence, title search, and all that good stuff, right? So they'll do that for you. They'll know what you mean. If you incorporate a seller financing component to what it is you're doing, they'll know exactly what to do. Now, what I do when I'm working with closing companies is I'll go ahead and draft the note myself, and I'll have it signed by the seller, just because. What's up, Dr. Leslie? What's up? All right. What's up, Dr. Clarissa? Yeah, come on, hang out. So I'll go ahead and draft the note myself, and you can use eForms or Rocket Lawyer, doesn't matter. The note is easy, right? We're not actually going to use the note that I draft. I'm drafting it because I want to show that me and the seller are in agreement. We'll both execute it, right? Execute it means we'll sign it. And then I'll send it to the closing company so they can put it on their own documents. Okay. Why do I do that? Why not just tell them what I'm doing and have them put it on their own documents? Because if I do that, they're going to email me back and have a whole list of questions, right? What's the interest rate? Is there a balloon payment? Is there a prepayment penalty? What's the amortization schedule? And all these things, I can just send them a note and be done with it. Okay. And then they can do it the way they need to. So yeah, that's relatively easy to do. All right, I'm a resident. Okay. That's relatively easy to do. Tuning in from Los Angeles. That's what's up. Shout out. Landlord Launchpad. I know you know what it is, Cheryl. So that Landlord Launchpad, you guys in our real estate family, if you own real estate, you guys already have access to it. But make sure you don't set up a property without using that Landlord Launchpad, that guide that I have. It's only about 20 pages, but it's gonna get into everything from your screening process to operations, to managing renewals, to managing service requests, to implementing your community policies, to the deposit accounting. All right. So it's everything you need. So you guys, and if you guys have any issues with it, just reach out to me and I'll get you squared away. Okay. All right, folks. I think we're gonna wrap up in just a minute. I'll look at the different platforms to see if there's any questions, but I did want to give you guys an understanding of the difference between multifamily commercial and 1 to 4 unit. They're both, everything serves their purpose. All right. Don't let anybody sell you on one thing. All right. There's people that are like, I'll die on this hill. Multifamily commercial, that's where it's at. Some people will say, if I could do it all over again, I'd buy 1,000 units at a time. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, dude. All right. And you guys have heard me get into these back and forth conversations with some of these folks. And that's okay. That's just the nature of where we live, folks. Everybody's trying to sell something. People have courses and all that other stuff. I get it. I have a course. You never hear me talk about it because I don't think the course is sufficient to make you a successful real estate investor. And I don't want people coming in and paying for my course, which is fully automated, and then being out there trying to do stuff and not being successful. Because my brand, we create real estate investors. So my brand makes a guarantee. I'm going to turn you into a real estate investor. I put that in writing. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care if it takes 6 months. I don't care if it takes 6 years. I'm going to turn you into a real estate investor. Unless you tell me you no longer want to be a real estate investor. Otis, don't call me. Don't send me messages. I want to do something else. I want to go off and backpack through Europe for the rest of my life. All right. If that's the case, then we'll leave you alone. But I still have to have a space for you to come back when you change your mind 1 year, 2 years later, so you can just jump back in. All right. If you guys are hearing people very adamant about one particular strategy, it's your spidey senses should go up. All right. But why are they so adamant? Like there were some people during the pandemic that were teaching the Burr method, right? They had courses about the Burr method. I didn't agree with having a course about that because that's something I can teach in 30 minutes. And these folks were charging like 1,500, 2,500. I get it. It is what it is, right? Buyer beware. And, it may be worth it to some people. And I get criticized internally by some of my own people that, it's just because it's easy to you doesn't mean it's easy to everybody else. And you should, you guys get it. All right. But the people that were selling that course were only telling you about the positive things about that course. Because if I'm selling a course on the Burr method, I'm not going to spend a lot of time and resources explaining to you why the Burr method won't work and where it won't work. All right. By the way, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so the Burr method don't really work out here. And for those that don't know what the Burr method is, remember that example that we did earlier about the $30,000 house with the $30,000 rehab and the $100,000 ARV, and we did the cash out refinance of 80% of the ARV. Got an $80,000 mortgage, paid off the 60 we were all in. We were owed 20. That $80,000 mortgage cost us $700 a month, but it rented out for $1,000 a month. So we made $20,000 tax-free out of the refinance, and we're cash flowing $300 a month on that property. That's the Burr method. The reason why the Burr method doesn't work in high cost areas or areas where there's no development is because in high cost areas, or when the money is expensive, right? Interest rates go up. The rental income, the final rental income is not enough to service the debt against the property. So in higher cost areas, you do flips most of the time. But if you don't know that and you bought a course teaching you how to do the Burr method, then you're going to be all over the country trying to figure out, how to execute that situation, right? That's one end of the spectrum. The opposite end of the spectrum is if there's no development, meaning there's no comparables, and you're trying to exercise the Burr method, more often than not, what you buy the property for and what it costs to fix up is more than the property is going to be worth when you're done. That's the opposite end of the spectrum. So when I teach people how to invest in real estate, I teach them all the strategies, because guess what? There isn't one strategy that's going to work 100% all the time, unless you just pay cash for something. But even then, as an investor, you got to weigh out the opportunity cost of deploying that capital. So, and I hate paying. My stomach cringes when I hear people say, "Yeah, I pay cash," and they leave cash in a property. Now, my stomach, I can't stand it. Right? It's like drinking milk that's been sitting out for 2 weeks. To me, that's what it's. Well, I guess it is like eating it, huh? Because it's probably hardened up. All right. So that being said, folks, just shop around. Follow people. If you are looking for a mentor, make sure you understand what that mentor is about. Make sure you talk to some people that they have mentored. make sure that you have a full understanding of the support you are going to get. Okay. Now, about other programs, I'm not.
Hey, oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
we have a couple of questions in the chat.
Let's get it.
All right. David Stokes says, what's up, David? Can you restate the promissory note and your registration of it and how that allows you to mortgage the note/deed?
Yeah, so you don't mortgage it per se. You are just taking the debt that you owe the seller and you're attaching that debt to the property to secure. So that's security for the seller. So the seller didn't have to trust you, right? When you're having somebody deed their property over to you, you got to be able to protect them. So that's how you protect them. You attach the debt to the property. So if I default, then the seller can foreclose and get it back. That's all. So you don't mortgage it. You don't mortgage it, but when you exit out of the property, if you're not selling it, if you're keeping it and doing a cash out refinance, that cash out refinance, that new mortgage is going to replace the existing mortgage, and the seller will get paid out and you'll keep the difference.
That's all we got, brother.
All right. So yeah, folks, if you guys are looking for a mentor, make sure that you understand the type of support that you're going to get. I'm not crapping on other programs, but you also got to understand that those are businesses that exist to generate revenue. They have a bottom line. They have people they have to pay. They have overhead. When they rent out these auditoriums, is that cost. All those costs are passed on to you. So just because our program costs less does not mean that they are too expensive. They are priced right where they're supposed to be. Okay. So you can't compare them to mine, because if they offer the support that we have, they'd go bankrupt. Period. They would go bankrupt. And we plotted it out. They'd be bankrupt in 6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months, because they would have to charge you so much for that ongoing support that it wouldn't be realistic. All right. So it's not that they're charging too much. We just charge very, very little. I'm a real estate investor first, and I teach 90% of the classes. All right. So I know I can turn somebody into a real estate investor relatively quick. Ask the right question, folks. Buyer beware. Again, I'm not pooping on any other programs, but just understand what they are. And they're transparent. They'll tell you exactly what you're going to learn. I don't think that you can create a real estate investor by giving them a bunch of lessons. We go on we do the fundamentals for 7-8 weeks. Then it's time to get out there and start doing the stuff. In my opinion, that's when the learning starts, with the real world application of it. But I can structure. If I wanted to just do it for the money, I could just I could just do a whole bunch of classes, I guess, and I could do that, but it's just not. We got into this to create real estate investors, man. It ain't. Yeah, all right, I'll leave it alone. I'm not gonna go off on that tangent, because I don't want you guys to think that I'm talking down about any other organization. There's a lot of good organizations out there. I've attended some of these organizations, right? I've been to all the multifamily commercial events that come to town. I was going there to look for people to hire, but just to see, what are they doing? How are they communicating? How are they, all of these things? So I've lifted the veil on a lot of this stuff. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up. You guys know how to find me, 4datapoints.com, the number 4, DATAPOINTS. Those folks on that gave me a shout out on Instagram. Shout out to you guys. Is that Bruno over there? Is that Bruno over on Instagram? Shout out to Bruno on the winning real estate team down in SoCal. Tony Glenn, Bruno, Ian, and crew. You guys know how to find me. Info at 4datapoints.com. Should I just give out my personal? No, I'm not going to. Y'all be asking for stuff, boy. I got a free workshop coming up March 22nd. Just go to our website, look at upcoming events, and we are going to beat these 4 data points to death for that free work. It's free, folks. Even if I never see you again, at least I know if you master the 4 data points, you'll be able to protect yourself when you get out there. The purpose of those 4 data points is to keep you from getting into something you can't get out of, to filter out all the noise, all of the other information that doesn't matter, all right? And to keep you focused. That being said, I think we're out. I got to be careful, because when I end these lives, I'll turn off like 2 or 3 devices and forget I got one on, and I'll get a phone call and be like, "Hey, man, we know, we can see you dancing a New Edition in your pajamas. You might want to shut off that webcam." Any questions on the Clubhouse side? All right. Cheryl says, if you have no landlord education experience and knowledge in that order, you will have 500 nightmares nightly with 1,000 units. But actually, I'm serious. Yes. I t- look, uh, I'm not gonna put people's business out there, but it could be tough. Folks, this stuff they make it look so glamorous. Oh, that Anthony Glenn. Oh, we about to rock out. They make it look so glamorous in these spaces to get you to buy stuff. I tell people, look, I'm gonna tell you the truth because my people are with me. I can't sell them a dream because they're with me until they no longer need to be. So there's no, there's no, hey, there's no surprise. It didn't work. It's like I got to look at people multiple times a week if something's not working. So you guys just be safe out there.